Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live stream program. This one's a new one. You can see already there's a few people joining in. While we wait for a few people to join in, I'll briefly introduce myself and my co-host for today. I'm Angie, Field Marketing Manager at Hygraph, and I'll be your host today, together with our Head of Solution Architecture, Issam. I'll give you a proper introduction a bit. Hello, Issam. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Angie?
Doing well. We have a last summer week slash day here in Berlin. Where are you watching us from or joining us from?
I'm joining from Casablanca.
I think
It
next
is
time I'll make a
here
note.
bright and sunny here.
I think next time I'll make a note to join together with you from a warmer destination like Casablanca. Please
Yeah.
leave us a comment where you're watching us from and pick up the favorite drink to tune in. How's everybody doing where you're joining us from? You can leave it here in the comments. And I'll also put maybe our community Slack so you can chat with us there as well in the chat. All right, I think while we wait for people to join in, I'll get ahead with a proper introduction. Like I mentioned, I'm a field marketing manager here at Hygraph, part of the marketing team, and I'm leading the field events and partner marketing initiatives. I'm your host today, together with Issam, our head of solution architecture, and we're bringing to you an exciting new series of live streams, and this is all about content architecture. So I want to take a little bit of a moment to also introduce Issam. He is our head of solution architecture here at Hygraph, as I mentioned, and recently got a PhD in artificial intelligence, which is pretty impressive. He's been working in tech since 2003 and helped over 100 startups and SMEs on software development and growth. He's also a digital transformation expert and has been working with Hygraph for I think 2 years now. I want to grab his LinkedIn profile. I can put it here in the chat just in case you want to connect with him, ask any questions. Maybe you have any suggestions to share with us. And just before we get started with the session, I want to remind everybody that we will be doing Q&As at the end of the session and also during the session. So don't hesitate to leave any of your questions in the chat, and then we'll tackle them as we go, or at the very end, depending on the number of the questions. Okay, I think it's time that we do get started. So Issam, feel free to share your screen and we'll take it away.
Thank you, Angie. Thanks for the introduction. I'm actually really excited to be here and to start this new series of webinar. So I've been thinking. Content architecture, content modeling. How do we go about it? What is the best way to start working on it? Is it like a presentation? Is it a hands-on deck? So it's gonna be a little bit of both. I'm gonna share my screen, and so for today, we will talk about the foundation for headless and what make a migration to headless architecture successful. We'll take it slowly. This is today, like the building blocks, talking about how to start transition to a headless, moving from another architecture, or like just starting from scratch and doing this transition or digital transformation. So briefly, if you can introduce in the chat your headless CMS journey, what you know about headless, what you know about this kind of architecture. You can also share what is your role today, what you're doing in your company, and what's the expectation for this webinar. So what's a headless CMS? So headless CMS is really about two things. And the main thing is about empowering content editors to release content fast without having any technical knowledge. So we're creating content that could be, reused across multiple distribution channels that could be, consumed easily through an API, and that could evolve, without the need of any technical background. So this architecture is really strong, but to get to the full scheme or fledged of this architecture, basic stuff about content modeling and content architecture need to be observed. So the content needs to be channel agnostic, needs to be reusable. And I'm going to explain each one of these in a moment. We need to observe and make sure we have a decoupled architecture. And towards the end of the day, we need to empower content editors. So a feedback loop from content editor team is really important to ensure that whatever we are building is empowering them to create content fast and to modify content for each channel they want to distribute the content to. So what does that mean to have like channel agnostic content and reusable content? The channel agnostic thing is when we think about a piece of content, we think about something that could be consumed by any device. Like let's say mobile, for example. If we're building an app for mobile, then we'd rather build this app to be also available for desktop, to be also available for VR. And when we think about reuse, so we want a piece of content that is created once, that is achieving a purpose, addressing an audience, to be reused in all the channels, but also in similar piece of content that relates to this entry. So this is what we mean here by decoupled architecture. We don't want the front end, any type of front end, any type of consumption or layer of consumption of the data to be linked or coupled with the content that we're creating. So I'll skip a little bit about the theory. So it's supposed to be a hands-on session, and I will show you really soon how to do these things. So, but I wanted to talk a little bit about this series. So a lot of things that we're gonna talk about, not today, but throughout the series. So talking about the best practices, how to do, what does content modeling means first? Like what is a bad and good content model? That can we qualify a model by bad, or give it like the tag bad, or give it like a tag to say that it's a good one? How content model and content architecture will impact performance in the future. A couple of concepts that we've been implementing with our customers, like how to do multi-tenancy, how to do multi-brand, how to do multi-region efficiently. I would say they can be done, but how to do them efficiently, how to maximize the reuse. And towards the end, we're going to talk about the editor experience, the process, how to bake in the process into the CMS, and with the ultimate objective of making the headless CMS as independent as possible from the dev and technical realm. So today, we're going to focus on data structure. So this is what we're going to be building. Okay, let's put it full screen. Slideshow. I guess now you can see it full screen. So the building blocks of a model are, and this is important for us to know, the fields, which act as properties. Then references, and references are properties, but that are baked into like another model. And then we have other properties that would be baked into components, what we call components, which are like layouts or structures that we connect to the parent model. And then we have enums, which are like a list or tags. And then we have recently something we released recently in Hygraph, and it's pretty handy. So it's enabling a tree of enums, and we call it taxonomies. So please take a screenshot of this specific deck, because this is what we're going to be modeling today. So let's imagine we want to model this webinar. So if we think about this webinar and then we want to model it, it will have a bunch of fields. like for example, a title, a description of the webinar, the date and time of this webinar. Is it live or is it like recorded? It will have a reference to the presenter or the author, so it's a relationship. It will have a bunch of components, let's say at least the agenda of the webinar, today's webinar, and then a banner, promotional banner, for example. It will have an enum, and this is a way to filter or tag the content for a specific audience. And then it will have some topics, like what are the topics that we are addressing today. And then I broke this down into little items for you to be able to follow when we do the modeling. So title, description, date, time, and is live would be properties. Of course, author is a property, but author will be shaped differently because we want to maximize reuse. So an author can deliver multiple webinars, hence the reason why we have this author reside within its own model. And then a webinar can be delivered by multiple authors, or just written or prepared by multiple authors and delivered by one or multiple. A webinar has an agenda, so it's a property again, but it's baked in a different shape, which we call components. So an agenda will have topics, and each topic will have a duration. A specific agenda works only for one webinar, and this is why we are treating it as a different kind of entity, which we call layout. And this is because the agenda is like something that we use one time and then we drop. A webinar will be designed for a specific audience, so hence the enumeration and the tagging. And we can add later on that an author has an address. So an address is a unique thing that is like relates to just the author. So we're gonna treat it also as a component. So I'll move to Hygraph and then show you how all this could be done. So if we look into that, so we said that a webinar has a title, right? So what we're gonna add are the other fields. So it has also a date and time when this webinar is happening, which is today. And then I'm gonna show you later on how to fill in the information for that webinar. Okay, it has a Boolean, which is live. To say, and then we can put a description. This is to say if the webinar is live or going to be recorded. And then we can add this one as well. And then it has a description. So description here, we can choose between a single line or multi-line or rich text. I'll choose multi-line for description. And I'll explain later why I prefer multi-line rather than rich text. And it has a duration, which could be, a number, duration, and this is duration in minutes, and it's a number. Right. So now we created, and I hope you screenshotted the piece of, I'll go back to it so you can see it again. So we covered this portion of the webinar modeling. So now we're gonna move to this one. And if you didn't screenshot this deck, please do it. Give it like 1-2 seconds for you to do it. All right, so moving back to the modeling. Now we need to say that a webinar has an author, right? So the way to do it is to come to the references and attach, and we call it author or presenter. This is the display name. And then we connect it to the author. I already created that one and I will walk you through it. What is important here is what we've been discussing a little bit before is allowing multiple authors per webinar, and then maybe making a two-way reference, meaning each webinar has many authors, and each author can be involved in many webinars. So it's a many-to-many relationship between webinar and authors. We can decide otherwise. We can say, we don't want to do this, like each webinar belongs to one author. But I mean, to make it flexible, we'll keep it this way.
Issam, so
Yes.
we have already like a question in the chat, and I would love for us to answer it. Hi, Ori. Ori asks, you might answer, but can you tell us more about the difference between enums and taxonomy? If both can be used for tagging/filtering, is it that taxonomy has the hierarchical relationship?
Okay. Yeah, I can answer this one. I was about to talk about this one. So I'll go back to my screen and I'll show a couple of enumerations, for example. So we have this screen type. Screen type is an enumeration, which is a flat structure. It has these options: home screen, login screen, profile screen, settings screen, detailed screen, so on and so forth. So I can add any of these. You got it. I mean, it has only one layer, doesn't go any deep, doesn't have any nesting. So I can choose one of these options if I'm selecting this enumeration. On the other side, when I go to taxonomy, and this is what I've been working on, so this is the content of this series, for example. So let's say content modeling. Today, we are talking about why we do content modeling, but then we are addressing also the building blocks. So we are talking about components, we're explaining why we need enumerations, and taxonomy, we're talking about the fields and basic fields, and we're talking about why we need the references. So you can see that it has like a tree structure: content modeling, and then content modeling, we have a topic which is building blocks, which is the topic of today's webinar or session. And then under this one, we had other stuff that we'll be dealing with, which is talking about components and explaining why they're important and why they're different from references, talking about enumeration, talking about fields. So this is the basic difference between taxonomy and enumeration. And we're going to see soon how we use it. So if we come back to this one, the webinar, so we just referenced the author, but then we said at a certain point that we wanted this webinar to be for a specific audience, right? So we're gonna tag this webinar with an enumeration that has a list of possible audience. So if I come here, got again my screen, and then I don't think I have, yeah, do I have? Okay, I don't have it, so I can create one, which is audience. And then in audience, I would have beginners, intermediate, and advanced. Add. So now I have my audience enumeration, which I just created. It's in here. I go back to my webinar model, and I will associate each webinar with one or multiple audience. So go here. I'll say same, and then I'll pick from audience, and then I'll allow multiple values because each webinar could be targeting multiple type of audience. Does that answer the question for enumeration at least? Because we're gonna cover taxonomy a little bit later in the same presentation today. Okay, cool. Let's go back. So what we've done, what we've achieved so far is the field here, the reference. We've done the enum to tag the webinar and address it to a specific audience. What we are missing is the components and the taxonomy. So going back to the model, so we said that each webinar has an agenda. So I've already created an agenda in here. So I'm gonna explain to you how this works. So each agenda has a title, and it has a bunch of topics. So you can see here it's a component, and it has multiple values, and it's a topic. So if we look into webinar topic, like this list is multiple values of webinar topic. So I go into webinar topic, it's a topic and a duration, right? So the topic is reading from the list of content modeling taxonomy that I just showed you. Does that make sense? So the idea is like to have, if I go back to this taxonomy here, to say we're gonna spend 5 minutes talking about components, 5 minutes talking about enumeration, 3 minutes talking about fields, 10 minutes talking about references, 10 minutes talking about the motivation. And you're gonna see how this unfolds when we move to the content. Because probably now it's kind of a little bit fuzzy, but then you're gonna see how that works. So webinar coming back, we said like we're missing an agenda because we need an agenda for the webinar. So we're gonna attach it. And the way to do that, because agenda is a component, so we're gonna add a component here. And then we call it agenda. And then we're reading from this one. And off we go. So coming back here again, we've covered this one, and taxonomy, the topics are within the agenda, so we don't need to do any of this. Let's see how all that unfold into the content. So if we go into webinar and we want to introduce this one, so I'll be adding an entry. So today's webinar about content architecture, the foundations. So it is today, right? And it's supposed to be free. It is going to be a live one. So this is the first session in a series of webinars to explain the concepts behind content modeling and architecture. Okay, duration is 60 minutes. And the author, if I click here, I will not find anyone. So I need to create an author. If I come here, so it's going to be me. And then I can put a bio. I can add a photo, I can add an email. And that's it. I can save. If I go back, I will see that I have an author that is attached. And then for the audience, so idea is like to have this one for beginners, intermediate, and advanced, because it's covering some very important notions. And then we need to add the agenda. And this is where the magic unfolds. So this is really, really interesting. So today's our foundation agenda. So the first topic we covered is the building blocks of content modeling. And we took something like 10 minutes. So this is the first item of the agenda of today. The second topic is talking about components, and we took 5 minutes to talk about these. The other topic was to talk about references, and we took something like 5 minutes to talk about that. One of the references that I mentioned is author. The other thing we talk about are enumerations, and we took maybe 8 minutes because of the questions. And then we talk about taxonomy, and it's not created. And I think that's it. So this one we need to remove. So we have our agenda for today: building blocks, component, references, enumeration. I can save, and that gives me the full structure of today's webinar. And then, as you can see, let's review it together. So a webinar has a title, it has a date and time, some options, a description, a duration. It has an author, an audience or multiple audiences, and then an agenda. Any questions so far? I think it's important to get a good grasp of this. Okay, so there are other ways to do that. So you saw that I've done it this way, and then I will emphasize why I've done it this way, because I could have come here and instead of, and then let's explore this author. So author here has like a name, bio, photo, email. It has, each author is involved in multiple blog posts and is involved in multiple webinars. So we could have done it differently. We could have just come here, then do something like author's name, and then add it here. And then we could have, author's bio, and instead of, well, let's remove this one instead of this one. So the bio would be like a multiple author's bio. All right. And then could be also something like author's contact information, right? So we could have done it this way. Instead of this reference here, we could have done it this way. But the problem with this approach is, like, each time I create a new piece of content, so let's go to this one, I need to fill in these information, versus if I am just doing it with the relationship with the author, I can reuse the same author, since we said that one author, and then let's create something just dummy, If we come here and then add existing author, I'll find that there is an author that exists, which is making good reuse of something we already created, and we don't need to create the author again. And then every information about the author will be centralized here. So if I go back now, I'm not saving this one. If I go back to my author here, I will see the list of authors. So let's imagine I have a bunch of authors and experts that are working with me on these webinars. So I will see the list. I can maintain the list. I can change the information. And each time I change the information, let's say I change the photo, I change the bio, it is going to be visible in all the connections that this author has, which are here, the blog post and the webinars. Right? So this is why we are not doing it this way. Some will do it this way, but it's a flat architecture, and it's not maximizing reuse. So let's delete this one and keep our model clean. So I will also highlight something like you've seen in the agenda. I don't need to specify in the agenda how many entries I have. So we said that each agenda is composed of webinar topics. So if we go to webinar topics, each webinar topic is a topic and a duration. So I don't need to say how many topics I'm covering today. Could be 5, could be 10, could be 20. So when I am creating the content for this entry, I can just go here. Okay, it's loading. Yeah, it is loading. And I can go to my webinar list. I can see that I have only one, which is this one, and I can decide to add something additional. So today I have only 4 topics. First one is the building blocks of content architecture. Second one is components. Third one is references. And the fourth one is enumeration. So I can decide I want to add another one. So what I will do is I go to my taxonomy and I have this little piece in here. So I forgot that today we said that towards the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So I'll add this one, right? And then I will be adding it into my agenda because I missed this one. So I think we promised that we're going to have something around 20 minutes or 15 minutes for the questions. Technically, I'll find it here and it's 15 minutes. And then I click save. Now, instead of 4 topics that we are covering today, we're covering 5. Does that make sense? Do we have any questions so far? All right. So I want to show also that I can increase or enhance my models as I proceed. So let's imagine for this model, which is author, I have the name, the bio, the photo, the email, but I'm thinking probably I need an address. So I also need the address to keep in touch with this author or presenter. So I want to keep it in my system. So the way to do that is there is one way and the other way. So simple way is I come here, and probably because it's an address, it's going to take more than one line. So I can add it this way, double T. And then it could be this way. But then we are talking about architecture. So we want things to be clean. So the recommended way to do this is to create a component that will host or be the layout for the address, because we don't want to have a flat address like this. We know that address is composed of many components, and we want to be able to filter or search by city, by zip code, by street name. So in order to enable that, versus like just going and searching into the entire address, I will create a new component and I will call it address. And this component is gonna have the properties of an address, which is a layout. So it's gonna have a street number, it is going to have a street name, it is going to have zip code, and I keep it like a simple line text. I'm not putting it as a number because in some countries it's not numerical. So zip code, and we will have also, and yeah, now I can be smart. Like I know street numbers can change, street names can change, zip code can change, but I am quite sure that the cities will not change. So I can create a taxonomy for cities. Could be taxonomy, could be enumeration. Let's try enumeration. So let's say this is my cities. And so first one, I'm gonna put where I am now, Blanca, and Paris, then New York, and probably Tokyo, then Berlin, enumeration. Okay, so I think I have the enumeration created now. Let's see, there is an error. Okay, let's move this one. Okay, it seems like there is an error. But anyways, you get the drill. So I'm creating the enumeration for cities. So if I go back to my address, what I will be doing is picking from the enumerations in here. So let's imagine I have my cities in here. So my city would be reading from the city enumeration. And if I don't want to do the enumerations, oh, I get why I have the problem, because I have a taxonomy with the same name. This is why I didn't want to create. Yeah. So cities. That one was created. And then I can do the same for countries. So I can create either a enumeration or a taxonomy for countries. So the difference would be, if I'm doing it under enumeration, it would be just flat. If I'm doing it under taxonomies, I can have it under continent, you know, I can be like entire word. And I can come here. And then the first layer could be, you know, Europe. And then under Europe, I can have Germany. I can have another country, right? And then under the entire world, I can have North America. And under North America, I can have USA. And I can have Canada. And if I go back to my address, I would be able to add the country here and associate this country with this taxonomy. So now what is missing is adding the address, which is a component, and attaching this component to the author. So similar to what we've done with the agenda, go back to the author model. I'm removing this one because I said this is not working, or it's very simple. And I will be adding my component. Which is the address component. Okay. Now, if I go back to content and I look into the information about the author, I will find that I can enrich this author with the information about the address. And I can put my address. I can select the city, and I can select the country. And I can save. Again, I'm having a centralized way to keep track of the information for each author. If I change something in here, it is going to show in the webinar here. So I don't need to go and modify it. So these information that I have in here will be ready in that connection that I have with the webinar or the webinars. Okay, so let's pause a little bit and see if we have any questions so far.
We do have a suggestion from Gabriel. He says you had to add Berlin, which wasn't added. That's why it didn't let you save the whole enumeration.
Yes. I think it's also because I have CT in enumeration and taxonomy, so I didn't like it. Didn't want to save both. Okay, so any questions so far? So those were the basics on how to do content modeling, why we're doing it this way. So I'll go back into the presentation. So this is really important. We use the enumeration for filtering. So beginners, intermediate, advanced. We can choose one level, we can choose multiple levels, right? Enumerations will help us to do good tagging and filtering. If you wanna get the content for all beginners, assume after like 100 rounds, we have multiple webinars, and then we wanna see which one we're targeting beginners, which one we're targeting intermediate. This is a very efficient way to do the filtering. Taxonomy help us to have this tree structure and organize, the agenda as we've seen today. But you can do similar stuff with the region of the world, with the countries, each things that warrant a hierarchy. You can use taxonomy. Components are reusable layout. So, for example, we've seen that an agenda works only for one webinar. So this is like something throwable. So we're using once and not reusing. So this is why we are putting it in a component. A reference, for example, the author, is something that we want to reuse because an author will be involved in multiple webinars. So we want to keep track of the information of this author and centralize the information about it. So each time a webinar is done, or like this person is involved into a blog post, which is a different entity, we can just attach it and we don't need to recreate this one. If we've done it flat, as I've showed you, we need to fill in the information for this author each time we have a connection. And then we've shown how to add, a component, which is the address, and how to implement the address. All right, so let's move along. So I want to show you, like, to close this session today, two things. First, like a glimpse into the next session. So I'll show this one. So what I want to discuss with you in the upcoming webinar is how to do content modeling in Miro and how to design your model. So we're going to work on a vehicle page, this one, and see how to model it and how to embed the information about the product, which is the vehicle. And then the vehicle page, also how to model it, like the banner, the search bar. And then we're going to have something like this. And then I'll talk to you about how we do color coding and how this is like helpful when we move to Hygraph. And then the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is some examples of, let's say, bad models or not recommended models. So for example, this one, we have a model, it has only title and it has a structure that is a JSON file. So this is the structure here as a JSON file is not enabling us to change the structure, because the whole point behind having a model or content architecture is to reduce the coupling with the front end and to be flexible and nimble with the structure. Another one is probably when we go on the other side, some people will put like even rich text editor into a model. I think if it's not needed, this is just over-engineered, maybe too deep, too over far-fetched. Yeah, this one, how we create or how we use an image. We're gonna talk about it. So, like, for example, if we add an image like this, and then each time we are inserting the image, we're not able to kind of put the information about the same image. So each image will have like information that we want to keep, at least focal points, the thumbnail, for example, the sizes that we want to have, which size goes for mobile, which size go for desktop. So all these information needs to be centralized. If we're using each image on its own in each model, then all these information will not be centralized. This one is a pattern that we'll be talking about a lot in the upcoming session, which is putting too much presentation or layout information when it comes to the front end within the content. So we'll talk about the strategies on how to decouple the information that goes into the layout. Like, for example, this one, how is the top, how is the bottom, what is the size, how is the left pan, the right pan, do we have an overflow? Sometimes we even, like some customers, they put even CSS overrides in here. So this is specifically not omni-channel. And then we're going to walk about strategies on how to make it omni-channel if we need to keep this information in a headless CMS. Other examples. So this is why I don't like rich text editor, is because sometimes you can put even the entire HTML file in within the content, which is not only highly coupled and strongly coupled, but it's kind of ruining all the benefits of a CMS. So if you put all the information like the HTML and then also the JavaScript and the CSS in a model, then you're losing the power and flexibility and nimbleness of a headless CMS. And then, for example, this one, again, in a rich text editor, putting an image like this without putting it in a model will make this image live alone, so it's not centralized, and then it leads to too much duplication. I want to conclude with a thought or like an idea about rich text editor. There are or rich text sections. So if we come here, so you can see that in Hygraph, we have the ability to add a rich text, which are like really powerful. So for rich text, you can see that you can have all the formatting options, the type of text, the underline, the block quotes, you can embed assets, you can do a bulleted list, you can even have a code block, iframe, superscript, subscript, a lot of useful stuff. But if we take it this way, then probably we're going to lose a lot of the advantage and power of a headless CMS, because we can do something similar without the need of rich text. So this is why in the beginning I was like more inclined to use long text, this one, multi-line text versus rich text, because I think rich text will lead us to something like this one, or that one, which are not taking benefits of the advantage of headless CMS. And yeah, I mean, the next session, as I mentioned, separate the presentation from content, how to put the information of the layout separate from the content, how to do content modeling in Miro, and then how to start from a page and maybe do the modeling from that page and ensuring that it's scalable, flexible, and easily can be easily evolved by the content editors.
Thank you, Issam. I would also invite everyone to subscribe to our channel. Make sure you don't miss any future programs. And you can also go ahead and give a look at our Hygraph/events page if you're interested in any other live streams. We have another live stream coming up next week, and that's part 2 of Vibe Coding with Dino. We'll be continuing to build a small application with the help of AI and best practices. Thank you so much to Ori and Gabriel for your questions and suggestions. We hope to see you also next time. Hello, Dimitri, as well. We'll be also publishing the next coming up episode for the other session with Issam, and we look forward to see you there as well. If you haven't played with the product, you haven't tried Hygraph, I'll leave the link below if you want to sign up for free. And yeah, it was lovely to see everybody here. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time. Bye for today.